Why honey never spoils. The incredible science behind nature's eternal food. Before we begin, take a moment to look at the jar of honey. It may seem ordinary, a sweet golden liquid, but hidden inside that jar is one of the most extraordinary substances on Earth. That archaeologists have discovered jars of it inside ancient Egyptian tombs, sealed for more than 3,000 years, and still perfectly edible. Civilizations rose and fell, empires disappeared, kings were buried and forgotten, and yet this simple golden liquid remained unchanged. How is that possible? How can a tiny insect create a food that seems almost immune to time itself? In the next few minutes, you're about to learn something so surprising it will make you say, "I didn't know that." The only food that practically lasts forever, honey is often called nature's most remarkable food. Unlike milk, fruit, bread, or meat, it does not rot in the traditional sense. Stored properly, honey can remain stable for decades, and in some cases for thousands of years. But this isn't magic, it's chemistry, and it begins far away from your kitchen, in a field of flowers, where honey really begins. The story of honey does not begin inside a hive. It begins with nectar. Flowers produce this sweet liquid to attract pollinators, but to bees, it is raw material. A single worker bee may visit more than 1,000 flowers in a single day, and to produce just 1 pound of honey, a colony must gather nectar from roughly 2 million flowers. That is an astonishing amount of work for something we often take for granted. The bee's secret laboratory. When a bee collects nectar, she stores it in a special organ known as the honey stomach. Inside this chamber, enzymes begin transforming the nectar. Complex sugars are broken down into glucose and fructose, but that is only the first step. When the bee returns to the hive, she passes the liquid to other worker bees. These bees add even more enzymes, gradually changing the nectar into a substance that is increasingly hostile to bacteria. The transformation has begun. The liquid contains far too much water, and water is exactly what microorganisms need to survive. And this is where bees perform one of the most extraordinary engineering feats in nature, because instead of letting the nectar spoil, they remove almost all of the water from it. And that single step is the reason honey can outlast entire civilizations. The bees spread the liquid into the wax cells of the honeycomb. Then, thousands of workers begin beating their wings. Together, they create a powerful flow of warm air throughout the hive. Hour after hour, water evaporates. The moisture level drops from around 80% to less than 18%. At this point, the liquid becomes thick, concentrated, and incredibly stable. Without enough water, bacteria and mold simply cannot grow. The bees then seal each cell with wax. The honey is preserved, protected, and ready to sustain the colony through winter. Why honey never spoils survives for so long because of 3 remarkable properties. First, it contains very little water. Second, it is naturally acidic. And third, it produces small amounts of hydrogen peroxide. Together, these conditions create an environment in which most microorganisms cannot survive. In other words, honey is naturally self-preserving. The next time you add honey to your tea, consider what it represents. A single worker bee produces only about 1/12 of a teaspoon in her entire lifetime. That means your single spoonful is the result of countless flights, millions of flowers, and the combined effort of thousands of bees. What appears to be a simple sweetener is actually one of nature's greatest achievements. So remember that ancient jar hidden in an Egyptian tomb, buried in darkness for more than 3,000 years. When it was finally opened, the honey inside was still edible. Not because it was preserved by humans, but because bees had already perfected the formula, a natural food engineered to resist time itself. If this made you see something ordinary in a completely new way, subscribe to I Didn't Know That. Comment your thoughts on this video and tell me if you like honey too. Because the world is full of simple things hiding extraordinary truths, and sometimes the sweetest discoveries are also the most timeless. See you in the next video.